Hey, I'm Matt Pierce. I'm going to share my story today on Noticeably Invisible. Stay tuned.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Noticeably Invisible. My name is Dave, and I'm your host for the episode. I'm joined here yet again with another special guest. I have Matt Pierce, who I have had the pleasure of just getting to meet today. So this is actually our first time meeting, and you've been sharing your story a little bit with me before we recorded, and I'm really excited to be able to kind of dive into this. But before we get into that story, Matt, can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and your story a little bit?
Hi, my name's Matt Pierce. I have been a part of Perspectives for a while now. I kind of dropped out for a little bit in 2019, had to go into a shared living situation, but recently came back in 2023 as um, I was able to get an apartment on my own
Very
with the
nice.
help of a Section 8 voucher
Mhm.
from the city of Newport. During COVID times, it was so hard to find housing in Newport that I was able to transfer my housing voucher to Rhode Island Housing. I was then able to find a private landlord who has studio apartments in Charlestown, which is kind of where I wanted to stay anyways, so it all worked out for me.
Perfect. So you get a nice apartment to yourself?
Yes,
Yeah, that must be
yes.
nice. So, Matt, tell our listeners a little bit about your interests, your hobbies, things like that.
My interests, I like to follow NASCAR. Um, I like to follow just about any New England sports teams, from the
Go,
Patriots.
what's the ranking? What is like your favorite sport to least favorite?
My favorite would be NASCAR, then Boston Red Sox, Patriots, Celtics. Well, actually, Bruins should be up towards the top too
Okay, yeah,
because
you mentioned,
I
yeah,
love the Bruins.
yeah. You're a big
Yeah,
hockey guy.
yeah,
Do you like Bruins more than baseball?
yes.
Okay, all right. So that's probably your top, right?
And I also like Special Olympics, participating in Special Olympic
Yes.
sports.
As we can see, you brought your medal in. You just got that medal, you told me?
Yes, last weekend, Special Olympics Winter Games at Yagu Valley Ski Area.
Very cool. So what was the event that you got that medal for?
Uh, Giant slalom downhill skiing because the first two races I disqualified for.
So you've been skiing for how long?
I've been skiing since I was a kid,
Yeah,
but recently, back in 2019, if it wasn't a little bit earlier, I started participating in Special Olympic skiing, Winter Games. Had a couple of setbacks due to some surgeries,
yeah.
but I got a full year in this year, and that's what I'm happy about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that event itself is one that I actually like. I didn't even know Special Olympics did skiing until somewhat recently. And I actually don't know anyone who participates in that skiing event. So you're my first kind of experience talking to someone. What is it like? How many people participate in it? Is it a popular one?
Yeah, it's a popular one. There's like probably close to 50 or 60 athletes that
Oh,
participate.
wow.
And if you don't mind me sharing a little
Yeah,
story,
go ahead, please.
a friend of mine, Ian Shepard, he he starts tomorrow Winter World Games, Special Olympics World Games over in Turin, Italy.
And he's from Rhode Island?
Yes,
Oh, that's
there's
so cool.
there's three athletes from Rhode Island that
Yeah.
went over to participate.
Oh, that is so cool. How does that even happen? Does someone come up to him and say, "Do you want to participate
They
in the World Games?"
they
Or
get selected like you got to be nominated to be able to go over.
very cool. Well, you must be proud of your friend.
Yes.
Are you able to view this somehow? Is there a way that people are able to watch the World Game?
Uh Usually you can go on Facebook, they'll have all kinds of updates. Uh, Michigan actually had Special Olympics Michigan actually had a video of everybody being in New York um before they flew out of New York.
Oh, cool. So
And
everybody got together in New York to fly out?
yes,
Oh, that's awesome.
yep,
Very cool. Matt, you told me that something that you did for a very long time, up until somewhat recently, was you worked for the fire department.
yes, I volunteered for the fire department. Um, Long story short, I had 30 some years in with them.
Yeah.
Uh, it was very hard to give up due to the nature of my surgeries that I've had in the past, total reverse left shoulder surgery
Mhm.
and total right knee replacement.
Okay.
District chief was gonna make a recommendation that I drop down to being an associate member. At that time, I was like, nah. I was like, that's not for
I've
me.
been doing it too long to drop to that status. It kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, that's an interesting concept because I'm sure that in your mind is it's like I've been doing this so long, how do I go down a notch when I've been doing it
exactly.
at this level, right? Um, but you ultimately kind of determined like, all right, I feel like maybe it's time for me to step away.
Yeah,
And that was a really hard decision to make.
yes, it was. Very hard decision.
What did the fire department kind of mean to you? What was doing that volunteer work? Like, how did that feel when you were doing it?
Volunteering in the volunteering in the community. Um, Plus, I also got to know a lot of people through the fire department. Um, Even though it was volunteer, we did get a little uh stipend for it,
Yep.
which means once a year we got a check based on a point system.
Okay. So it sounds to me though that the most rewarding thing was kind of the community that you built.
Yes,
Yeah. And feeling like you were an active like participant in your
yes,
community, helping people,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
What was the was there any like memorable like emergencies that you had to report to or any situations that kind of stuck out to you that were like you'll never forget?
Mm, well, I will never forget. Uh, I want to say I wasn't an active member at the time, but my dad was. Uh, Christmas of 1980, I want to say,
Hmm.
right around there. Um, as a little kid, I can remember my dad always telling me a story growing up that there was a house fire in Shannick where some kids like my age actually didn't make it out of the fire
Oh
alive.
wow. Yeah.
So, I mean,
That kind of stuck with you. It's
little
not like
heartbreaking.
yeah.
Yeah.
But also it sounds like maybe two things. It sounds like you're kind of your dad was a part of the reason why you wanted to do this,
Yes.
but also it sounds like that story might have stuck with you and you wanted to be able to help people so that doesn't happen
Yes.
again.
Yes.
That's a pretty powerful story. And especially the fact that it kind of resonated with you to the point where you kept that story in your head
Yeah.
as you were doing it.
I still have it stuck in my head to this day, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, Christmas since my dad has passed away, just, I mean, I'll be honest, hasn't been the same because I remember the story that he always told me,
Hmm.
um, that if something ever happened to him, make sure I go, pay respects to where the house fire site was, and then where the kids were buried at over in the cemetery, and
So this story not only impacted you, but like obviously your dad
yeah,
really struggled with wrapping, like just kind of dealing with that over time. It was really powerful for him too.
yes.
Wow.
And then I can remember some gruesome car accidents, and
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a few bad structure fires in my lifetime.
It's such an interesting job because you do expose yourself to all these really tough to see things, right? Like
Yes.
things that can really traumatize a person, but yet it's rewarding at the same time, right?
Yeah.
What, so like what kept you doing it even after you would see difficult things? Just that thought of like, I want to help and
Yeah.
yeah,
The thought of I want to help and be a part of the community.
yeah. Um, and sounds like also pay tribute to your dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's important too, right?
Yep.
Yep. Um, one of the things,
Oh, one of the things
oh,
I
go ahead.
also forgot
Yeah, go ahead.
was not only do I do skiing for Special Olympics, but I participate in bowling. Um, I participate in summertime.
Yep.
My dad was a very avid golfer.
Okay.
I follow in his footsteps. Uh, I've actually got a silver medal hanging in my truck in memory of my dad.
Awesome.
The year that him and I got a silver medal in the division that we were in when he played unified golf with me. And then,
So you guys were a duo?
yeah, we were a duo. And then uh, the legacy, I mean, I still participate to this day.
Yeah. Did he do bowling with you too?
No,
No, just the golf.
yeah,
He was a big golfer though.
yeah.
Yeah.
And bowling's for summer games.
Yeah.
When I first started, I used to like to do track and field and bowling,
Hmm.
which you could do back in the
Yeah,
day,
they changed it,
but
right?
now they've changed the rules with everything.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
so
I love this theme though of like how you pay honor and tribute to your dad. I always tell people like when we lose people, it's one of the hardest things is like figuring out how to move on. But I think one of the keys to moving on is paying honor, paying tribute to someone,
yeah,
right? Trying, thinking about how can I make that person proud because they're always here,
exactly.
right? So I think that's such a special and powerful message that you're sending to people. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Speaking of family, that was actually one of the things that, we wanted to talk about today,
Yes,
right? So you've had a little bit of a journey when it comes to like your living situation, right?
yes,
And I will let you share your story. But that was family is a big part of this piece, right?
yes, it is.
So I'll let you kind of pick up on that where you want to feel like it's important.
So where I feel it's important is if you got a sibling, stay connected with them as much as possible because um you just you never know when you're gonna lose that sibling. I had an instance where after my dad passed away, I kind of got roped up with some wrong friends, bad habits, even though I did not do those bad habits. Um, People who I thought were my friends were actually not my friends,
Hmm.
which led me to a big change in 2019 where I had to move out of the basement that I was living in a family home, and I went into SLA for a few years. Um, but before I went into SLA for a few years, I had been working for over on the Navy base since 2010.
Okay.
It took me from 2010 to spring of 2021 when we were in peak COVID times
Hmm.
for my name to come to the top of Newport Housing Section 8 list. And because nobody was moving during COVID times, um, I was able to transfer my Section 8 voucher to Rhode Island Housing. Uh, they kept doing extensions for a year, and I was starting to lose hope towards the end of that year
Yeah.
that I wasn't going to be able to find a place.
Hmm.
I finally talked to South Kingstown Housing Authority over on Curtis Corner Road. They put me in touch with a private landlord who owns an apartment building in Charlestown, which is where I wanted to stay because My mom is 15 minutes, well, maybe 10 minutes away from me.
Nice.
My stepmom's 15, 20 minutes away from me, depending on, travel times and weather conditions and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
It's very convenient,
My si
proximity.
my sister, she still lives in Charlestown, um, which leads me to another thing,
Yeah.
and we'll get onto that after. Um, I was able to find the landlord that had the uh apartment building in Charlestown, and they had a one studio bedroom apartment, which was very much across the highway from where I was living when I was in shared living. Um, so I kind of jumped on that with the help of my Section 8 voucher, so I only pay, just like shared living, I just pay a portion of my rent,
Yeah.
and Rhode Island Housing kicks in the other half.
Nice.
So it's like subsidized housing, kind of like when you're in a shared living program. Um, at which point I jumped on the apartment and I've been there ever since. And it's conveniently located. If none of you are familiar with where Charlestown Post Office is,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
in the vicinity of Charlestown Post Office. And another thing I like to do on Friday nights that I've been doing uh since the year that I moved in there, karaoke on Friday nights.
Nice.
It's a really nice restaurant. It's called the Cove Restaurant.
Okay.
So I live within that vicinity.
What's
And
your
then
what's your go-to karaoke songs? I believe we had another guest on here who shared some of theirs.
um pretty much anything country music.
Country music.
Yeah, yeah.
That would all go right over my head if you named anyone. I wouldn't know any of them, but that's cool. Um, so it sounds like the last few years since you've been at that new place, you've been kind of building yourself back up.
Yes.
Because before that, it sounds like you kind of took a path that you saw was going in the wrong direction,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And maybe we can kind of pick up from there as far as like what that looked like, where you were at that time, and how that kind of impacted family.
Well, where I was at that time is I was feeding into people's drug habits,
You were living
and
with your sister at the
I
time,
was
right?
living with my sister at the time.
Yeah.
And she said, her and her husband were both like, "You're a bad tenant. You got to move out. We can't have you here. We
So,
can't have you around."
so they were kind of noticing you were spending
Y- y-
time around individuals that were engaging in drugs.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, you didn't engage in the drugs.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody once in their lifetime or another takes the road
Sure.
down a path less traveled that you really don't want to.
Yeah.
And I have noticed since coming out of an SLA situation, which I had a very good home provider, Dave, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
I'd like to share her name with
Absolutely.
you.
Sure.
Because hopefully she sees this episode. And she also works for Perspectives,
Okay.
which I couldn't have thanked Nicole Prefontaine at the time when I was in that rough spot. Um, she actually helped me get connected with this home provider,
Mhm.
Mary Burdick.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
give my shirt off to her.
Wow. Wow.
And I mean, even though I don't live far from her, I I still consider her like family.
Yeah. So she really helped you kind of pick yourself up when you were in a low place.
Yep, yep. She
That's amazing.
she kind of helped me pick myself up when I was in a
Yeah.
low place.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still think of her as family.
Yeah. And I know that the situation with your sister, it sounds like it was kind of ongoing for a little bit with the
Yes,
involvement. And the way you described it,
because there was also a time where when I was in this rough spot,
yeah.
I lost my Social Security for a length of time, which made me unable to pay rent to my sister
Wow.
and her husband.
Yeah.
Um, which it took a little fighting for my supports from perspectives to help me get it back,
Yep.
but we got it back.
Good.
And so far, so good. I'm on tap. I
And
hope to
the
never lose it again.
and the way you had described your involvement with those friends that were engaging in that stuff was you kind of saw yourself aiding them or like in enabling them is kind of how
Yes,
you described it. Like you were
yes,
providing them the money to do the things they were doing.
correct.
And like, what's your takeaway from that experience? What do you know, you had shared something with me off air about just like, I thought they were my friends.
Yes,
Can you share a little bit more about that?
I
Like what?
thought they were my friends, but come to find out they weren't my friends.
Yeah.
And it just, it makes you separate from family for way too long. I've been separated from my sister since 2019, and I'd really like to reconcile with her,
Yeah.
come back to terms with her, and let her see how stable I am on my meds since I got out of the hospital in 2019. And just the fact that I'm back involved with perspectives, I like if I don't have that reconciliation with my sister, then I consider my friends in independent living as part of my family.
Yeah.
From uh, clientele down to support staff.
Mhm. I think both can be true. I mean, obviously your desire to reconcile with your sister can definitely be the path that you're going on, but you'll also have that extended family of all those people and supports that
Right.
have been so important to you, right?
Yes.
Regardless of what happens with the reconciliation. But I can't help but sense that the situation hurts you.
It does very much.
Yeah.
And
And I hear so much of you, like as far as your view of that situation, you're taking the responsibility.
yes.
You're kind of acknowledging that you understand why they were upset
Yes.
and you want her to hear that.
Yep.
Have you been able to share that with her? Has it been have you been unable to communicate with her?
I've been unable to communicate with her just simply because she doesn't have any of my contact in her phone.
Okay.
And um
So
it just hurts.
let me do this. If she were to see this, let's say a family member shares it with her or something along those lines. If she was watching this, what would you want to say?
I would want to say I've realized I realize I've made those mistakes and I don't intend to go back down that path. And I just would like to have my sibling back, my biological sibling, because
Yeah.
I do have a couple of step siblings, but having step siblings aren't the same as having true blood
Yeah,
family.
sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, that goes for any of my dad's family that may be watching. My Uncle Paul, my Uncle Glenn, um, three of my aunts, my aunt Sister, and my aunt Darlene and Doreen. If they were to see this, uh, I would like to reconcile with the whole family and come back to terms with them.
I hope you do, Matt. I really hope you do. I can just feel it when you're saying this. I'm like, oh my goodness. I hope that they all can hear you and understand that it sounds like this is something that you just want so much, and you maybe felt like you were distracted away from it for a period of time, but
Yes.
now it's like, what was I doing? I want my family.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel for you.
Because family is very important.
Yeah. No, 100%. I love that you acknowledge that. I love how you're able to view that, but I also love at the same point that you're like family can also like there can be extended family too. Like the people that supported you and helped bring you back and get you back on your feet
Yes.
also are special to you
Yes.
and feel like a part of your family as well. And I think that's something that definitely people in services, you know, who have with agencies they experience, but people outside of agencies can relate to that too. When you have close friends or just other people who have kind of helped you in your time of need.
And I'm hoping that maybe also some of my friends from Living Innovations will see this, that I'm on noticeably invisible
Yeah.
because let me tell you, if it wasn't for Living Innovations, I don't know where I'd be today.
Yeah. That's the SLA provider.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm going to say this again for anyone who just didn't happen to catch what SLA is. I know we've used the term like 50 times in this episode. Shared living arrangement is an SLA. It's when an individual resides with a outside family support person, or you essentially become a part of the household, right? You have a shared house with an
Exactly.
individual. It could be a family, it could be just one individual. It looks different in all these situations, but perspectives, living innovations. I mean, those are just a few of the Rhode Island agencies that have shared living arrangement spaces. So, yeah, so that sounds like that was the thing that really helped bring you back.
Yeah.
And now you're in a place where you have your own individual apartment. You're back on your feet. You're doing things that you enjoy. You're skiing
Yes.
down slopes. You're doing
Yep.
everything, man. It's great. What are you not doing that you want to do? Do you have any like things that you're like, I really want to try doing that, or I want to get back into this thing?
Well, I haven't been on a vacation to Florida in a while,
Okay.
so I'd really like to take another vacay to Florida.
Now I'm gonna ask you this question. I think there's like two thoughts in my head of what it could be. What's your Florida location that you would go to?
I would either go to Daytona
Oh, I wasn't even thinking of
or
Daytona. That makes sense.
or just a trip down to visit my stepmom again.
Okay. All right. Totally two things that I didn't think of. I was thinking you were either going to say, Fort Myers
Yeah, actually,
or
Fort Myers would be good because I do like the Red Sox.
yeah, or I didn't know if you were going to say Orlando, but all right, yeah. Daytona is another spot that
Yeah.
would make a lot of sense for you with your NASCAR love, right?
I do recall one time where I did get to take a trip into Fort Myers, and I get to see part of, like the spring
Yeah,
training with the Red Sox.
yeah,
And that was done when my dad was still here.
yeah. So maybe going to revisit it would be a nice way for you to reconnect with something that you did previously with him. Yeah, I really hope that you can make that happen. I hope that we can get you on that trip. That'd be awesome.
Yes, it would be.
Matt, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your story, your experiences with us, being super open, super vulnerable. You are an amazing guest. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
I very much appreciate it.
Before you go, do you want to give anybody a shout out? I have a
Yeah.
feeling you got plenty of people you want to give a shout out. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Now's your time.
I'd like to give a shout out to my mom, my stepmom, and if my family gets a chance to watch any of this noticeably invisible, I'd like to give them a shout out too,
Great.
as well as all my friends here at Perspectives and all my support staff here at Perspectives.
Amazing. We're going to see what we can do about getting this to as much of your family as possible. Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, listening to Matt's story, and just the support that you've been giving as these episodes have been coming out. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you, and we'll be back next month with a couple of new episodes. See you later. Bye.